Alrighty, ahoy all, and welcome to State of Sponge 22. Glad to have you all along. So, joining us today, we have Faith Care, Yerogorix, myself, Owen, Inscrutable, and STDDT appearing as BNAF, Professor Crazy. Um, and we have
Usual
a
crowd.
couple more also in the chat, so Morph as well. So yeah, I'd like to welcome everyone aboard and remind everyone that you're more than welcome to post your questions and such in chat. Ideally in the Twitch chat or on Discord, it's easier to get back to. But if you're doing it during a discussion, we might be able to find it in the scroll back. So you can try it on Minecraft as well. But best do that in Twitch or Discord. Um, so yes, welcome aboard. 20-second stairs sponge. It has been a while. So what are we at now? 2023. So we are past the 8-year mark. Still a little bit longer till Spongy's birthday. So that's coming up in September. So hopefully we'll have another State of Sponge ready to go for that. Uh, so in the meantime, we should probably get to a overview of where things are at while we're waiting for questions and such to come in. And I'll also give everyone a quick run through of the server. So currently we're running Sponge Vanilla 1.19.4. As you can see, we've got an underwater world this time. And if you're joining the server, please just use /warp SOS dash XXII to get to the stage. Hopefully that's the correct detail.
Well,
But everyone seems to be slowly pouring into the stands, so that's really good to see.
well, the big red gate should also warp you there, but yeah, we are having the odd plug-in issue. So
Yeah, so we found a dupe bug with a protection plugin. Thankfully, we don't believe that's Sponge itself, so we'll take a look into that a bit later. But always fun to find these
there are
things.
also some minor issues with logins too. But it seems that most people have tried to log in have actually gotten in. So yeah, we are
Alrighty.
still trying to track down that one.
So I guess to start off with, we should move into our development updates. So first off, we have a little blast from the past. 112 API 7. So with the caveat that this is no longer officially supported, we've had a pull request regarding XP orb merge optimization. So that's PR 3827 if anyone's interested. Still working out what to do with this one, but I believe Yerogorix made a interesting comment. Not Sponge's official stance. We don't really have an official stance since it's now in community support. But we did used to put optimizations directly into Sponge, but we found that this has increased the maintenance cost and risk of incompatibility with other mods in Forge, especially when optimization mods are bundled by default in most packs. So that sort of brings up an interesting dilemma with regards to that particular issue. So it might be one where it's possible to merge in, but only Sponge Vanilla, or just not merge and keep that as a optional plugin. There's lots to be considered here. And we'd appreciate hearing feedback from other people in the community because remember, 112 is in community support phase. It's not Sponge providing active support for this. So if people in the community have opinions on what should be done or have ideas on how to do things better, please put that in the pull request. Yeah, I'm sure the original author would appreciate hearing other opinions and so on. Um, anyone else here have any comments on that? Sounds good. So moving on to 1.16.5 and API 8 and so on. Currently, we're still aiming to finish development on 1.16.5 API 8 in the reasonably near future. Um, of course, it is hard to give a precise date on this, but we've gotten to the point now where a lot of the actual broad development effort, with regards to making sure the API is implemented, making sure the implementation itself runs well, we're mostly on top of all that. At the current stage, I think the main issue is just trying to improve mod compatibility that little bit further. Of course, we can't guarantee compatibility with every mod, and it can be quite difficult when they overwrite the same things that we do.
Look at all
So
those
there,
people
there are
spamming tickets.
yes, there are lots of pickles being dropped everywhere. But yes, so previously, there are a few mods that had a fair few issues, but I think thanks to FaithKO's uh, efforts, we've had a few PRs lately for supporting modded tile entities, supporting modded light blocks, fixing forge interactions, um, and some partial work done on fixing world edit forge commands. I think that's still a work in progress. Faith, would you like to talk at all about those?
Well, I don't want to claim it for me because I didn't do it. Jericho was working on those PRs.
Oh, sorry,
Normally.
Yorogorix, yes.
Yeah, no problem. You can take it. So yeah, basically, at first, my plan was to fix sponge compatibility with Create. We had several issues, important issues that were fully breaking the mode. And after some investigation, I've been able to fix those issues. This will have a much wider impact than just Create. This will probably fix other modes too, by the way. So we will see. People have to test to see which mods have been fixed too, but we can guarantee this Create is now working perfectly.
Yes, and I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
we'll be
thank you very
doing a
much for that
little.
too.
Sorry, yes. We'll be doing a little highlight of that later. Mr. I has also been hard at work testing Create. There's been a lot of fun there, I think, if fun's the
Well, I've
right
been
word.
testing a lot of things. I mean, that's how it sort of originated in the first place. I had a little list of mods that I knew weren't going to work well with Sponge Forge at the time, so I've been going through and testing them periodically. And yeah, we've had a few, as you said, there are a few PRs recently that have fixed a lot of issues and make sure that Create actually works. And that's a really good thing because it's actually the foundation of quite a few packs. Certainly not a majority, but it's very common. So we don't want things to blow up just because we add Sponge because Create is in there. And we know that at least that much works now. And as you said, there's a whole bunch of things that got fixed there. So it's quite likely a bunch of other mod compatibility issues got solved at the same time. So please, people, test and find out what is and isn't working. We have recently gone from a situation where it would have been easier to describe the mods that we knew worked with SpongeForge than the ones that were not compatible. And now it's sort of inverted the other way. So if we can narrow down the remaining incompatibilities and work out what the issues are, we might be able to get a lot of that sorted. Probably not everything.
Yeah, it's always a process. But this is something else where we'd really appreciate the community's help. Obviously, testing every single Forge mod and mod pack is a bit beyond our abilities. There's quite a few out there. So we'd really appreciate other people um, trying those out, seeing what's gone wrong, seeing if there's if you're testing out a mod pack, identifying particular mods in that mod pack that have compatibility issues, reporting those on our GitHub issues page, and helping us, work through and try and identify if that's an issue that can be fixed. Because fairly often it has been, but not all the time, unfortunately. But even then, if it's not something that can be fixed, it's something that we can note down, put in our Sponge Docs mod compatibility page, um, so people know, oh, if I'm having a problem with this mod pack, I just need to delete this mod or change this setting or so on. Because often enough there are workarounds to some extent. And speaking of that, I know I'm sort of getting a little ahead here, but Inscrutable, would you like to talk at all about that mod compatibility list that's we put up on Sponge Docs?
Well, yeah, actually, firstly, I'm going to say we have got a new contributor to the docs lately, so thank you very much, Mose Mister, for jumping in and helping write in some new docs. It's been going great guns, actually. But yeah, specifically the mod compat page, because we, as I said, we now have a list that's somewhat smaller than the length of your highway. We can actually narrow down on what the few mods that break are, and perhaps even work out ways to get those resolved. But in the meantime, yeah, we have got a reasonably good list of what we know breaks SpongeForge, and we're both looking for contributions, and also if you know how to fix one of these issues, by all means, jump onto the Discord or give us a PR and see if you can work that out for us as well. But certainly, we're also looking for contributions to the docs to add to that list in general, because we know that there are going to be some that are going to be problematic in the end. I mean, we haven't even tried OTG yet, for example.
Yeah, lots of adventures coming up there, aren't there?
Yeah, but the real thing is, that we've actually managed to step Sponge, into the light of a new modding age. So yeah, we do want people to try out SpongeForge and help us get it to a somewhat more polished state. We would really love to have it so we can actually release a recommended build, and then probably move on to something a little bit more recent.
Yeah, I believe the current plan is to release a Sponge Vanilla recommended build when we've got that all nailed down. And then SpongeForge will still be a bit more work in progress. It'll probably take a bit longer before we issue an RB for that. Yes.
Also,
So
it's very helpful having events like this too, because I can sit here and watch the console fill up with novel and unique errors that we can pass on to our developers later on.
yes, it's always good to have people try and break things.
I'm watching a lovely screen of red right now.
So up there, actually, so before I move on, I should ask if there's any questions that the community has with regards to our update procedure there with 1.16.5. But I'll move on to the 1.19.4 development discussion here. So 1.19.4, which is API 10, or by running on the server right now, is still very much under active and ongoing development. So I want to let everyone know that this will still be worked on post 1.20's release. So we are expecting 1.20's release in the next couple of months, I think, if Mojang keeps the normal schedule. So yeah, probably 2-3 months from now. And yes, the current update plan is basically that we will be working on both the current N and last N-1 builds. Oh, might have a stream issue.
I'm not sure what the issue is with SpongeForge.
Oh.
Are we live? I hope we are.
Oh, apologies, we've got a stream issue. So we should be back again. Just give us a moment. And we're back, I think. Yes. Okay, we're back. Apologies for the interruption. Minor technical issue. Never seen that one before, but reassuringly, that was on the client side, not the server. So Sponge is still all up and running, thankfully. So where were we? We were discussing our 120 announcements. So, sorry, 119.4 and 120. So yes, the current update scenario is that Minecraft 1.20 When that is released, we will start doing active development of that. But following 120, we will still be working on 119.4. So 1.20 will be the active current N build, and 119.4 will be the N minus 1.
In
And that's
terms
the
of
same
Sponge
scenario that
Forge,
we.
what's our
And
next target for Sponge Forge?
that's it, exactly it. So with regards to Sponge Forge, we're going to be actively working with that on the N minus 1, so 119.4. So essentially, since Sponge Forge and everything is more complex and takes longer, so their toolchain takes a bit to update, and then we've got to build on top of that and get our toolchain working. Essentially, we're targeting the last release with regards to Forge, and the current release with regards to Sponge Vanilla. So 120 gets released, we'll hopefully have 116.5 finished up. Sponge Forge, we're aiming to work on for 119.4 while we keep going with our experimental development on 1.20. Hopefully that's fairly clear, but I do have a status update laying all that out. So currently, yes, Sponge Vanilla is in active development. I believe Faith has been doing quite a bit of work on that front.
Yeah, basically just updating the latest version. Should probably
Well, it's here.
get to snapshots soon as well again, so that we don't have too big of changes. But yeah. So,
Yes, yeah.
but we do still
And
have some issues as well, so probably need some testing.
as always, we appreciate people making posts for issues on our GitHub as well. Oh, someone can't hear our audio. One sec.
Well, can't hear Faith probably.
Oh,
It's very
okay.
quiet.
Yes, I will bump
Is
the
it better
audio up
now?
one moment.
Yeah,
That
actually.
sounds better. Yep.
Okay.
Thanks for letting us know, as always, stream audio. Please pipe in. Always appreciated. Okay, so and with regards to Sponge Forge, we're still pending. So we're hoping to release some Sponge Forge experimental builds soon, but that's pending tooling changes. I believe ZML has recently been working on those. So I will poke and prod and see what's happening. But yes, we're hoping to have some of those out so that we're also supporting 119.4 actively. But yes, the plan is Sponge Forge will be being built on 119.4 for the foreseeable future. Once we get around to initiating that work, and we're hoping to close up 116.5 as well, so we can move on to that. As always, when I say soon, I am talking in the months rather than weeks or days. So there's no rush. We're not abandoning anything, and also don't get overly excited and hope that we'll have builds out tomorrow. These things do take time, and it's always we're a community effort. So if you're wanting to help pitch in and get things done, please do. Reach out on Discord, reach out on GitHub, submit amazing PRs, and hope they get accepted. Generally, everyone is more than happy to work around and help people out when they're new to that as well. So I guess Faith, you'll probably want to say, is there anything in particular you'd like people to help out with for 119.4?
No, just general testing of basically everything that there is.
Yep, and there's always a lot of that to do.
I mean, there's a particular example at the moment where we're trying to figure out why we're having some occasional authentication difficulties, and we haven't got to the root of that one yet. But I think that's plugin related rather than Sponge.
Yes. Yeah. So that is something else to mention when you are trying to diagnose issues. If you're working with Sponge Vanilla, try taking plugins out first, see if that fixes it, and isolate the course to see if it is something to do with a particular plugin. Because often enough, like there may be an issue with the plugin, and you reach out to that plugin developer to see if they can fix it. but potentially it's a change that we've made in Sponge that clashes with that plugin. So then that plugin developer can then reach out to us and then let us know and see what needs to be fixed. Okay, so I think next thing. While we wait, I will just. We're planning on showing up a little demonstration of modded SpongeForge as well. 1.16.5 running create. I will get that set up. But in the meantime, please post all your questions and so on. We'll get around to those as we get
Yeah, we wanted
closer
to
to
have
the end
proof.
of this. Yes, of course. One moment.
Yeah. Well, I can answer one of the questions. Waterpicker asked, what about fabric counterpart? Basically, we won't put resources into that, but if a community member wants to do it, they can try to do it.
Always welcome to contribute, yeah.
Yeah, we have 2
Wow.
implementations to maintain of our own already. Oh, nobody here understands Fabric.
Okay. Should be... up and running on Create. There we are. So that should be coming through on the stream now. So I believe Inscrutable is running around. So we're just doing this as a little live demo rather than having everyone join in. So I will follow
Okay,
Inscrutable around.
Yeah, we've basically done our best to put up some nice, impossible animations that would be the sort of thing you can.
There we are, we're back. I think. Yes. Apologies for that. Yeah, OBS seems to be having a little trouble keeping up with all the different streams that we've been putting up. But yes, the 1.16.5 create server was all up and working well, and that's all thanks to those additional fixes that Yorogorix submitted just recently. Because I think only a few weeks ago we were having a lot more issues with Create. I think Inscrutable, you're best to go into what we're having trouble with and what we found were the fixes.
What? Huh?
Oh, with Create. What trouble were we having earlier, and what were the fixes?
I mean, literally, Create wouldn't even start to begin with. I mean, Create has a whole pile of wonderful, smooth-moving animations and things and so forth, and makes entities. But unfortunately, yeah, early on, Sponge just wouldn't work with it at all. So it's not a case of the entities wouldn't look good; it just wouldn't even load. And that's usually the case. You find something that's got a sponging battery, it's more likely to break horribly and crash your server than it is to just give you minor visual issues.
I will see if we can have one more go with our little Create demonstration. Just a moment. There we are. Okay, I believe that should be up on the stream. Yes, excellent. Okay, we're back. So we'll do a little show.
Look at all those pickles.
Just to show everyone that Sponge is running.
Welcome to Sponge Pickle Fest, everyone.
So there we are. The Sponge Power plugin platform running on Minecraft 1.16.5, API 8, SpongeForge 1.16.5, built on Forge 36.2.5, running API 8.1, RC 1321. So now you can see the little Ferris wheel we've got with all the little state of Sponge. Even hop on the little seats and have a ride. believe. Oh, there's Inscrutable sitting up over there.
Let's see if we can turn
I
up the
believe
speed.
Inscrutable. Yes, you can. What are we at now? Was it 16?
We're now at 8.
Oh, oh dear, that's fast.
That's 16. That's 32.
Oh dear. Oh
And that's
dear, that is
64.
very fast. I want to get off.
It's terrifying, isn't it?
Do you want to chuck it right back up again? We'll have a look at that spinning around.
Hang on. Just flooring the accelerator.
Yeah, that's certainly spinning all right. Oh dear. Wow, that is fast.
There we go. Back down to 2.
Yes, I'll do one more quick run around to show everyone the little create things we've got going. So this little rotating platform.
That's just a
Little-
rotating spawn. But yeah, I was trying to test all the things I could in Create to see whether or not they worked.
Bungee running along on rails.
There's probably a few more complicated things that need some, thorough testing and so forth. But so far, a lot of the really weird stuff it does is working, which is, it's a pretty good test of Sponge to sort of see that we can actually get it to work with this. I mean, there's probably a few other problematic mods we can probably give some extensive testing to see whether we can get all of their various features going too.
Yeah.
AE2 is probably one of them. I know there are some
Yeah.
issues with that with Sponge Forge at the moment. But if anyone wants to have a go at it and try and figure out what the issues are, that'd be great, because we'd be happy to put in a PR and fix them.
Yeah, I heard that's a nice little demo. And looking at the stream, this is actually broadcasting this time. We haven't had any issues. Okay, so that's good. Again, sorry about the little streaming difficulties, but thankfully nothing to do with Sponge. Those are all on my end. My apologies. So I will take us back to the State of Sponge stage.
Right.
There we are. Okay. So the next thing on our little agenda is community stuff. So, while I'm still going to get around to questions from you, first I'm going to ask everyone here a question. So we're hoping to do the API 8 plugin competition in the relatively near future, and we're sort of looking at what kind of plugin competition would you like to see? Would you like to see a themes competition where we're open to a specific kind of plugin? So I don't know whether that's some sort of chat feature, integration, RPG. We could even do one that's terraforming or what would be the word for it? Like custom world generation. So no, API 10. My apologies, API 10.
Yeah. We haven't seen many World Gen plugins on Sponge yet, so that would actually be an interesting thing.
Yeah, so we'd be interested to hear if there's any general requests for a specific theme, or if people would like to see, just an open plugin contest where you can submit anything your heart desires, and we'll leave it up to the judges to work out, what they deem as, cool and innovative or really helpful, so on. We're open to suggestions. Okay, and then I believe I should throw to Inscrutable here to talk about the docs while we're waiting to hear back.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've already had a bit of a brief mention of the docs earlier, but yeah, we are certainly we're keen on seeing as many PRs as we can get to help wrap up the API 8 version of the docs too. It'd be great. So because we are going to have to eventually move on to the API 10 stuff, and we do only like to have one version of the docs live where we can, because otherwise it gets horribly confusing. But yeah, there's certainly been some advances going at the moment, and a lot of the things that need to be rewritten are things like the plugin development pages, because well, obviously the API changed pretty significantly between 7 and 8. Something doesn't need changing, but many of them do, and we've got a sort of a bit of a hit list there, and we've got most at least working on updating some of them. But anyone else who wants to do so, please just pitch in and make a PR, or at least and make comments about which bits need to be updated to which other bits, and that would help a lot to target these things. As in when we can get a 1.16 release nice and shiny and reliable, and we'll have a recommended build, and we'll move our docs on towards the API 10 stuff as well.
Yes, we will be getting around to that in due course.
I think that's about all I really need to say, except the fact that if you find something that is wrong with the docs, please feel free to contact us on Discourse or on the Discord channel and just let us know.
Okay, so I believe that's most of the base stuff covered. So getting around to the Q&A and community comments. So this is an interesting first one. Who's the German on the team?
It's me.
I should have answered. Yes. Well, Faith, if you want to
First,
say what you do, use it as a little intro.
I mean, I started doing inventories, and right now I'm basically doing a bit of everything.
Well, yeah, that your plugin does a bit of everything. You're secretly running an essentials suite.
Yeah,
It's not well announced, but Cube Engine does all the things.
Yes, it's one of those essential suites broken up into
If you called it Cube Essentials, everyone would be using it, I swear.
Yeah, but then I have to support it.
We have also seen work on a new essentials plugin. I think Mosmist has been building. Still a work in progress, but looks really interesting. Okay, so the next question. Are there any updates about plugin competitions, changes for all policy, or anything else to incentivize plugin developers to work on Sponge? So with regards to this one, yeah, the plugin competition is something we're obviously wanting to get feedback on before we set one up and get that going. All policy as it is has remained standard, like we haven't changed anything. There's currently no real plans to change that now. I might remind everyone as well, though, if there's something in particular about all policy that you find tough to work with or so on, you're welcome to submit your plugins on other platforms such as Modrinth or CurseForge or anything. You do not have to have them exclusive to all. Just being a non-for-profit entity and so on, there are things that even if we wanted to change, those would actually be on both the technical and legal level quite difficult for us to do so. So there's some things where other platforms simply have a better legal and financial foundation for doing these things. So you're welcome to program plugins for Sponge. You don't have to submit them on all. That's like never been a restriction. So I don't know if that helps, but potentially. Anyone else have anything to mention on that? Oh, just okay, just following up in chat. So that was Ragnarok who said that. What does submitting in other platforms do to help Sponge's plugin growth? It's hard to use Sponge without being willing to go plugin itself. As I mentioned, these things are technical and legal challenges and so on. We can't offer everything, simply being the organization that we are. Some other ones do have better foundation for those things. Of course, there's lots you can submit on Sponge. Like, yeah, it's just if you're releasing plugins or your method of doing that doesn't comply with OR's terms and services, you can do that elsewhere. You can submit them elsewhere. So we're not a lockdown platform. It's just like an app store. App stores do have restrictions on what they offer, but you're more than welcome to sideload or use other app stores. That's all. That's all OR is. It's just a free repository. You can submit stuff on other repositories. And yeah, I know that's a bit of a roundabout answer, but it's basically saying there's lots of choice. Yes, it's now updates on event and so far. Yeah, we just haven't really heard back too much on that. Oh, one sec. Oh, yeah. Speaking of ore, Dr. Zodiac here has another very relevant question. I'm curious about when if Sponge is planning to migrate to Hangar. I don't know if we have anyone in the team here now who has been doing anything with Hangar.
Last I'd heard, there was a lot of umming and erring about it.
Yes. We have talked to the Hangar devs, and that actually came about as a sort of spin-off of Ore, I believe, at the very beginning. So yeah, we're actively thinking about what to do with regards to that. Unfortunately, I don't have someone here who can give you a direct answer because they're not attending, but we are actively considering what to do with regards to this.
I mean, we still have to consider, what the maintenance burden of it is for another project and so on. So that's probably where the limitations are going to be.
Yeah. So under active discussion is what I'd say. We don't have any concrete plans, but we're definitely trying to work out what to do about it. Yeah.
But if someone wants to join in and say, "Hey, I'll help build it for you," then by all means, come in and join the team.
Yeah, if there's a dedicated Hangar enthusiast who wants us to switch right now and is ready to get hard to work to build the infrastructure and migrate everything, we're probably not going to say no. Ragnarok as well. Why are the leads not attending? So that's something that we did change about the organization. I think we mentioned that the last day of Sponge. We're no longer operating in terms of the old model with dedicated leads for specific areas. Instead, we're going for a more flat structure. So it's just anyone in the organization doing what they can in whatever area they can. Basically, because we found as a volunteer organization, it is quite difficult to ensure everyone has the time available to do things at the same time. So we found that we can have one particular lead available at one particular time, but other ones busy with life or work or so on. So we decided it's actually better to go for a flat structure where people can just contribute as they will. People can take the initiative, drive things forward, and that does seem to have helped. And following up, who can make decisions now about sessions received? Just whoever's there, really. It's still just a consensus mechanism. So there's no decree mechanism. It's just people will bring things forward, see what's good, and we'll just go from there. Now, I think there are a couple of other questions should get around to here. Did we discuss the water picker's mention of the fabric counterpart? I think we did.
So maybe to add something on that, I have not worked on sponge fabric, but some people have tried to answer issue. As far as I remember, the issue was with mode loader. So technically, on Forge, we hook onto Forge loader to add our own loader, which is possible on Forge, but was not possible on Fabric. But maybe this has changed recently, and this may be doable now. I don't know.
go. Okay, where's the next question along? Okay, there's a little bit here, a bit further about the situation of Fabric and Forge. Yeah, that I think that's been discussed. So, but I'll just go on to the follow-ups that Waterpicker posted. So the situation with Fabric boils down to Forge is painful by itself, and you never have time to figure out how the ecosystem's worth, and not worth the time and energy for it to be anything but someone else working out by themselves. Okay. So with regards to that, it's not that we haven't had time to figure out how the ecosystem works and stuff. I know people have played around. It's just we only have the resources to support so many different builds. So Sponge Vanilla, we basically have to as a process of updating Sponge generally. So even if we were just doing Sponge Forge, we would still need the Sponge Vanilla step essentially. So we might as well release that. So Sponge Vanilla is always like the experimental bleeding, and Sponge Forge gets built off the back of that. But even just doing that, trying to deal with the whole Sponge Forge, so not Sponge Forge, the whole realm of other Forge mods, that whole environment, is a very time-consuming task, and it's just one where we only have so many resources, and we have to dedicate it to where we can. And we're more than willing for people to step up and do a Fabric port. It's just like as it stands, you're probably better off starting up and doing that with a group of people, and then if someone's able to get that working, it's there's the potential to fold that into Sponge. That is how Sponge Vanilla and Sponge Forge originated. Projects did get brought in, but it's more about having the maintainers for that. Someone who's willing to take the initiative, build it, maintain it, commit to that. That's all. It's just a question of resourcing and manpower. And then yes, having to deal with compatibility issues for all the different Fabric mods and so on. So same issue with Forge, but it is quite challenging to resource effectively. Okay, so scrolling back further down. Is there some projects page on GitHub or so for the Fabric? Sec? So yes, there is a GitHub page for Sponge, so github.com/spongepowered, which does have all our different projects listed under it. So Sponge Forge and Sponge Vanilla got folded into the same Sponge repository some time ago. We do have the separate Sponge API one, mix-in, so on. There are actually a bunch of different ones under that. If there's anything particular you're interested in, you can go check that out. And if you're just wanting to submit issues, post those on the issues pages for Sponge or Sponge API, respectively. Oh, Raspberry, there probably a little confusion there. No, there is no Fabric repo. We do not have one. And all I was saying is that if someone is willing to, create a Fabric port, step up, run that, there is a potential for that to be folded in later if someone's wanting to actively maintain that. But as it stands now, we're not doing that. Oh, GitHub projects rather than projects on GitHub. Yep. Okay, got it. The to-do list style one. Faith, think you might be the one to talk to on that.
I don't know if they're public, but they're definitely not up to date. So
Something to get around to.
we have our issues, and yeah.
Dan Norris here. You keep talking about limited resources, but you're also talking about so many different API versions. Surely at some point you need to scale back your efforts and focus on what is important to Sponge. Effectively, that is what we're doing. So, mentioning the API 7 stuff, that was just bringing up an old one that we have received a PR on for people to discuss as a community. As it stands now, we're currently just supporting API 8 and API 10. API 8 being the sort of LTS version, and then API 10 being the current work in progress one. So we haven't been able to. Sorry, what I should say is it's difficult to separate that because we always need to have Sponge Vanilla on the leading. We need to keep that updated. For SpongeForge, SpongeForge requires us to have Sponge Vanilla set up just as a matter of process. Don't know if I had brought up API 11 this time. That's the future 1.20 release, and that's where we're hoping to have 1.16.5 finished up. So the plan is finish up API 8. 1.19.4 becomes the N-1, so the last version where we get Forge set up, and then Sponge Vanilla continues being actively worked on for the experimental builds with 1.20, and that gets released. Why does it need to be bleeding compared to SpongeForge? Again, because it's a prerequisite. So basically, 95% of the code setup is the same. So we could just not support Sponge Vanilla. If we just did SpongeForge, we would do the same amount of work, but it would happen later. So, like, just to be sure I get this across, Sponge Vanilla is a subset of the work done for SpongeForge. We're not doing anything extra for Sponge Vanilla that we wouldn't do for SpongeForge.
Well, sometimes is, but it's really minor. Like there are like
Tiny,
maybe 50 classes or something that are vanilla specific, and everything else is the exact same as for Forge.
Yep, we've had a disconnection. Oh no! We're down. I'll switch back to the modded server in the meantime. That little rotating state of sponge. You say later or sooner as if there are different sections of it. If you're maintaining new MC versions at the same time as updating SpongeForge, you are therefore splitting resources even if one has to be done for the other. I mean, there's no wasted effort. Like everything that gets done supporting the latest build of SpongeForge, sorry, the latest build of Sponge Vanilla gets tied into a prior build of SpongeForge at some point. I think Faith, you'll probably want to expand on all that.
That's basically spot on. Like, if we want to have the Forge version working at some point, we need to do the vanilla stuff before. It's like all of the work almost.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're doing a lot more different things than we actually are, because all the new stuff gets folded into the prior versions. Like there's not wasted effort or anything. It's just a question of like, do we put everything into doing an old version right now, or do we just sort of try and maintain those together at the same time? So this is where like we're hoping to wrap up 1.16.5 in preparation for 1.20, because we only want to be supporting two Minecraft/API versions at the same time. One is that, bleeding experimental to get all that stuff out of the way, and the other as, the prior build or LTS or so on, where we can get Forge up and running on that. Yeah, and it's brought up there, vanilla being presented as a final product. Yeah, no, that's something like we have sort of actively, we're trying to move towards showcasing SpongeForge a bit more, hence why we have this little create server up and running. Hopefully next time we might actually, run State of Sponge on that. Of course, it's more difficult for people to join State of Sponge on a modded server, given they have to get everything set up and so on, make sure they have the same mods to be able to join it. But we wanted to do a little showcase because we do know we have not being showcasing SpongeForge as much as we could have done. So that's something we've actively tried to change. Okay, so one moment. I will switch us back to our Block 19 server. There we are. Everyone's coming back in. Okay, what other questions do we have appearing here? With regards to the Sponge Producer, I see Mo's Mister here has commented you can find a lot of issues that need fixing in the Sponge Issues page. So, yes, if you're looking for things to do, checking out Sponge Issues page is where to go do that. We should probably get around to updating the actual projects to give people, a nice list of what they can do and contribute. But take a look at the issues is probably the best spot to start with. And Jamie Mansfield, no, nice to see you around. Cool to see the SpongeForge stuff back now. Development stuff was just vanilla last time around. Yeah, so I mean, these things go in waves. We often do, a bunch of vanilla, then catch up a bunch of Forge, then back to vanilla. That's just how things have to go. So each thing typically takes little bursts as people are available for it. So again, that's why we sort of moved to this more flat model where people can take the initiative and do things rather than having to wait on someone. All right. I'll ask the other Spongineers here. Are there any questions I missed or anything you'd like to bring up? No? Okay. Following up here, just probably, I think this would be last bit from Rosenrock. Does Sponge have a priority in terms of number of versions and platform priority? As I said, we are aiming to work with 2 active versions, both the current N and the last N-1 version. Little out of order with the 119.4 and 116.5, but with 120, we aim to do 1.20 and 119 as the 2 ones. So yes, just 2 Minecraft versions. Sponge Vanilla has to be done as a prerequisite for SpongeForge. Yeah, don't really know how else to put that. We're not really prioritizing vanilla over Forge with regards to development efforts. In terms of communication, yeah, that's where we're trying to showcase Forge a bit more. But that's also like we're actively wanting to hear back, what needs to be done to get mods fixed, and get 1.16.5 to be, really solid platform Forge, so we can finish up with that and move on to development for 1.19.4 to get SpongeForge set up for the next generation of mod packs and so on. Let me just check our Discord as well, make sure I haven't missed any other questions. No, it looks like we are safe there too. So we'll stick around for a couple of minutes, I think, if there are no other questions to be had. But feel free to post stuff in our Discord and so on. I really would like to hear back and just see what people think for doing, a modded, not modded, our little plugin competition for getting everything up to API 10. And hopefully we can get something up and going so we can show stuff off at a future State of Sponge. In the meantime, I might ask the devs, are there any little things that you're actively working on right now?
Right now, on World Edit, yeah.
Yeah.
We might have something working soon, I hope.
Yes, I saw there were I believe 4 sort of sub issues that were
Yeah,
causing trouble with World Ed and went 2 down.
2 of them are for the Forge edition of World Edit, and one sub-issue is for the Sponge edition of World Edit. Two sub-issues have been fixed for the Forge edition. The third one is coming soon, I guess. So
Well,
we
very
should
much
be
looking
able
forward to that.
to. Yeah, so we should be able to use World Edit and Sponge Forge properly soon.
And Morpheus says currently working on API 10, waiting to finish up with API 8. Yep. We're all very keen to get API 8 all set up, finished, finalized, and get ready for the next iteration of mod packs and all that. Faith, do you have anything you'd like to mention?
No, not really.
I mean, we can check out all your work as well on GitHub, and a few people have been quite prolific as of late. I know Inscrutable mentioned it earlier. I would also like to shout out to Mose Vista for helping put a bunch of contributions into the Sponge Docs. If anyone here is looking at getting involved, again, Sponge Docs is a really good place to get started. We're hoping to also get the Sponge Docs finished up for API 8, make sure all the code references and everything are all updated. So again, we can polish that off, finalize it, and move on for API 10. And here, another quarter until next State of Sponge. So yes, we're hoping to do another one in roughly 3 months' time. So I believe, what would that put us? Late July, August? May, June, July. Yeah, so it should be ideally July. So if you're an Australian, that's in the next financial year. I'm not sure what the rest of you are celebrating, but hopefully something more exciting than that. We will be posting a status update out early next month, which is very, very soon. So probably in roughly a week or two. Yeah, in the next week or two, we'll have a status update out, which will probably include recaps of all this. I will be posting. I'll stitch all these little clips back together, and I'll post up a video copy. But do expect to have a lot of this stuff covered in the status update. So it won't be a straight transcript. We'll because there is a lot of rambling in these, so it'll be much more condensed. I would like to include a lot of these same points. Okay, well, I think we might call it quits just about there. I'll throw back to one more view of that little Ferris wheel because it is. I think it's neat. There we are. Again, thanks to Inscrutable for setting up all these fun little decorations. They're really it's really nice to see Sponge working with Create because a couple of weeks ago, it's not quite so good, but it's been a really rapid improvement. And thanks to Yarogorix for getting those fixes in. And with that, I might call it. Well, thanks everyone for coming along to Stare Sponge. Thanks to all the team here who came along and helped answer questions and entertained the guests. Apologies again for the couple of stream interruptions. We may have gone a bit more ambitious than we should have done with all the little OBS views, but thanks for bearing with us. And with that, I'll sign off and see you all next time.